Okay, hey everybody, it's Miss Patty at the Art Circle Library. We've got 2 cameras going today because we have such a cool program, we just couldn't film it with one. So, as you know, this is one of our performers today, and we have Mr. Bob from Animalogy, and he is here to share with you some really cool things. And for my little friends who watched their story time this week, be looking out for the clue, because that animal is here. So pretend like you're here and let's clap real big and say, hey, Mr. Bob.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Tarter. I'm with Animalogy. If you have ever seen me give a wildlife program, you know we're going to have a good time. Unfortunately, with what is going on, we have to do it on a virtual program, but I think it'll still work fine for us. Now, if you've never seen me give a wildlife program, I've owned and operated my company for over 15 years now. I used to travel over 10 states and visit about 250 libraries during the summer reading program. So this year we're only able to do it in our virtual setting. But the nice thing is then you can rewind it and watch Bob over and over and over and over and over again. So with our Imagine Your Story theme this year, we have Animalogy Unleashed. And what we're going to get started off with our animals today is you have to think about, as a scientist, we have to teach and train our brains to identify and look at certain cues. And what you have to think is everything outside in the wild has a job they're supposed to do. And the term for that is called a niche. And what you're going to be able to learn today is we're going to learn the story of these animals by you looking at the way they're built to understand how they're going to survive in the wild for us. So as always, I know you're going to have questions, but unfortunately I don't have to worry about you interrupting me during the program because you're technically not here. But you can always find me online. You can send your questions to Miss Patty. She will forward them off to me. Any of you that are Facebookers, if you follow the Animalogy Facebook page, you can catch some of our other live events and ask your questions from there. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first animal today is an interesting one because this is an animal that has lots of lessons for you to learn from, as well as there's always good books about it. With this one, I want you all to meet Larry. Now, Larry here is going to teach you that animal's job, that niche, because when we look straight at the camera, you can see his eyeballs are on the sides of his head. And that's showing you that he is not worried about his food running away from him. He's worried about becoming someone's food. And that's going to be the key. So this animal here is going to be a plant eater. This is an herbivore. Remember, vegetarian and vegans are just confused people that don't know how to eat properly. This is an herbivore for us. Now, he has his eyes on the side of his head, but he's also different from us. You take 2 fingers, you touch your skin. I'm already sweating today. We are warm-blooded animals. When we take 2 fingers, we touch Larry. He's actually cool to the touch. He's been in the air-conditioned car all day today. He's about 76 degrees Fahrenheit right now. The warmer he is, the faster he can move, the more food he can eat. Every time a cold-blooded creature raises their body temperature, they can increase digestion up to 4 times. So if he's sitting out in the sun, he warms up to the temperature here, he's going to be moving a lot faster than me, and he's going to be able to digest more. And that's how he's going to start his day. He's going to wake up in the morning and sit in the sun, and that sun's going to warm him up. I got to have that first cup of coffee to get the second cup of coffee to get the day started. And that's what this little guy is going to do, is he is going to sit in the sun, and then when he warms up, he's going to start foraging around for food. And he's going to eat the tender plant parts. And when he fills his stomach, he'll sit high in the tree canopy, getting direct solar radiation. And he has some amazing animal adaptations. One of the coolest ones is he has a 3rd eye on the top of his head. It is not a true eyeball, but right in front of my finger, you can see that little circle there. That little circle is that light-sensing organ for him. And that's going to alert him of a predator. So imagine this, the scenario. Larry's got a belly full of vegetation. He's sitting high in the tree canopy. A predator comes over the top of the head and alerts him because of that shadow. But when we do our indoor programs and Larry's cold, whenever I cover up that 3rd eye, his body tells him it's time to go to sleep. He thinks it's nighttime. Larry, that light-sensing organ will alert him of just that predator above. But when we're indoors and we're doing it in the air-conditioned room, that is going to put him right to sleep. His body thinks it's time to go to sleep. It's cold and dark. Now, he also has a cool animal adaptation on that belly. Look at those stripes on there. Look at that coloration. That is when our animals are going to have a background to blend into. And he looks like light filtering through the tree canopy. When animals have coloration and a pattern to blend into the background, that is called mimicry. And that's how he's going to do. So he can sense a predator above by the third eye. See there, he thought I was going to get him. He's hidden from a predator below because of the mimicry. If the predator comes here to the side, they look at that circle. That is called ocelus. That's when an animal has a body marking to look like the eye of a larger predator. So the predator is going to come up and get close. You look at it, that circle is bigger than my eye. And I've definitely put on more than a quarantine 15. That eye there is going to look like a big predator. And the animal that is getting ready to eat Larry will pause and think, wait, am I hunting Larry? Or is somebody bigger hunting me? When that predator pauses and it's near Larry, that's when Larry will make his escape. They can be 90 feet in the tree canopy and he'll jump straight out of the tree. He'll jump out of the tree, grab a hold of tree limbs and vines as he falls down. He may even belly flop right into the water and swim away to escape for us. Now, the entire time we've had Larry out, I've been holding on to his abdomen. I don't hold on to his tail because this is one of our animals that if he gets scared, agitated, or nervous, he can senesce that tail, meaning that tail falls off. Now, if that tail falls off, the predator is going to go after that and Larry will run off. He does have the ability to regenerate that tissue. It will be shorter and darker, though. Last lesson on Larry is 2 new vocabulary words, exotic and invasive. Exotic is used to describe something that's not from around here for you to understand and learn the term invasive. Think about this. If you have a little brother or sister, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They take resources from you. And that's what has happened. The green iguana is not supposed to be here in North America, but are found in southern Florida. And that is a problem because these animals are damaging the ecosystem. They like to eat the tender plant parts, which will be flowers. You eat a flower off a plant, it will not make fruit. Without fruit, we will not have seeds. The large flappy skin, that dewlap there, is going to be used to get the best spot to sit in that sun, the best territory. And females are always looking for bigger things on the male. So that'll help him pass on his line to make sure that he's going there. Do not recommend them as pets. Green iguanas can be big and long-lived animals. You're looking at something that'll live 15 to 20 years without too much problem. 8 to 10 feet in length. Some species can tip up to 12. So they're going to be too long-lived and too big. But it is an herbivore for us today. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put up our little boy Larry. And I'm going to get out your next animal for you. With our next animal, we're changing what we're looking at with the type of consumer. And that's where we're going to remember everything has their own story, their niche. With this one, I want you all to meet Randy. Hi, Randy. Now, Randy here is different. Look at this. This is a brightly colored lizard that when he looks at the camera, you can see the eyes are closer to the front part of the head, where our boy Larry had eyes on the side. If you have your eyes closer to the front part, you're worried that food is going to run away. So you use depth perception. That's going to be our carnivore for us, eating only other animals. Now, we're going to get into what makes the difference between snakes and lizards, but what we have to think of is when you look at them, good sense of smell, large nose right there, decent hearing, but if you've been watching him, sticking out that tongue. He's sticking out that tongue because he's tasting the air. The books and some teachers have it wrong, and they say snakes and carnivorous lizards are smelling. They smell with your nose, you taste with your tongue. Now this brightly colored venomous animal is found in the desert Southwest. So he's not using mimicry to blend in like Larry did. He's loud and proud with it. He's letting people know that there's nothing that he's going to do on purpose, but you should give him a fair distance. Now, in the desert, it may only rain in the spring, and there may only be a week or two for him to find enough food and water to survive an entire year. And what happens is when there's a good nesting season, could be a ground nesting animal, like a bird or a small mammal, as Randy will walk right into that nest and use his senses to smell it, hear it, even taste that prey. And what happens is the parents will look at this brightly colored animal and tell each other, you know what, we can always make more babies. And the parents will abandon the nest, and then Randy will go in eating all the eggs, all the babies in that nest, and they will convert the calories from that food that they've just eaten into fat, and they store it in the tail. This tail feels like an uncooked bratwurst right now. It's very squishy. And these guys may only eat a week or two in the spring and survive the other 50 weeks on the fat deposits on the tail. Because as a cold-blooded animal, if he stays out of the sunlight If he's underneath of a rock ledge and not very warm, he can conserve calories for it. So that's going to be the key. Now the venom from these guys comes from that lower jaw, and he bites into and holds on to it. And I'm not worried about getting bit by this animal because he never does anything in a hurry. If he's trying to bite me, he moves very slowly. And if you can't get yourself out of the way of that, you probably deserve to get bitten. But what these guys will do is they bite and hold on to it, and the venom leaches through the lower jaw into it. And this animal's venom is a coagulating one. It clots the blood. I'm weird. I own that. And when I was a kid, I saw a really cool video with these guys and their venom. They took a 3-quart container of fresh horse blood. They dropped in 3 drops of venom. They waited 90 seconds. They flipped the beaker over, and the blood came out like a solid jello mold. Think of that cranberry sauce you serve at Thanksgiving. You're going to be thinking of us in this next year. That's what this animal's venom will do to the blood. But this is a beneficial beast because we have synthesized that venom to help come up with drugs to help treat stroke victims. And that's going to stop the clots, as well as a medication to treat diabetes and battlefield dressings for soldiers. If a soldier's bleeding out in the battlefield and you cannot put a tourniquet on it, you can actually slap on a bandage to clot blood, saving lives. But definitely are carnivore. Eyes looking ahead, not on the side, tasting the air with that tongue. Now we're going to go ahead and put up our boy Randy and get out our next exhibit for you today. This one I want you all to meet Buttercup. And if you haven't watched Princess Bride on Quarantine, you need to. What we have right here is a very cool black and white Tegu found in South America. Now, what you got to think from this one, does this one look like it's going to be living high in the trees like the iguana? No. This is a ground-dwelling one. But look at these eyes again. The eyes can look forward as well as a good sense of smell of that olfactory sense. But look at that tongue flicking through the air. That is tasting the air. That forked tongue gives you larger surface area, greater sensitivity for that. And this black and white animal is going to be the same consumer we are. Eating both plant material and meat, this is going to be an omnivore. Now, what is special about her is this little one came from Florida. This is an exotic and invasive, just like the iguana. They have escaped into the wild and they're surviving. And I found a herpetologist down there that's capturing these animals that aren't supposed to be there, and he runs them through an anti-parasitic program, and then he sells them to people like me for presenters. So they get to serve as an educational tool. And that's what's so special about these guys. This animal here is going to be roaming around using those senses, but these claws are going to be destructive. And that's where they're a problem. The media will tell you that the Burmese pythons are the problems down the Everglades. The herbivorous iguanas and these tegus are doing a lot of damage too. The iguanas are stopping endangered plant species, where these guys here are destroying nests, the ground nesting creatures. They go into a nest, they'll eat all the eggs, all the babies out of it. They can even dig up nests that are buried with those good claws. So we have an exotic invasive lizard that is originally from South America, Colombia, Bolivia, and the rainforest. And for those of you that are tuning in and watching and you remember the 80s, it was that fashion that caused this animal to have less population. In their natural world, they're not doing very well. They were overhunted for the leather off of this beautiful hide. Believe, it was Miami Vice. It was really weird fashion during those times. The leather here feels like little beads, and that's why they were very overhunted in their natural home range. But we have an exotic invasive omnivorous lizard. That's where we want to remember the difference between these animals. All 3 of those lizards, you can tell me their niche by just looking at the way their head is built with their eyes. Now, some of you have been thinking, Bob, we're tired of looking at lizards. So we're going to get out something a little bit more charismatic. And with this one here, this is one that I want you to start talking to Miss Patty about for a library pet. With this one, I want you all to meet Molly. Molly here is actually the African Pygmy hedgehog. But remember, these guys are cool. Now the hair here on the back feels just like toothpicks. It does not come out like the quills of a porcupine. The belly here has very soft hair. And if she gets scared or nervous, she'll curl into a little bitty ball, and the hair sticks up at all different ends. It doesn't hurt, but it certainly doesn't feel good for us. Now this is actually a product of the Roman Empire. And think of how she's built. Look at that face again. Eyes looking forward. His nose always smelling. Good hearing, as well as that sense of touch. A lot of people don't follow their senses, and that sense of touch is important for us. Now, the African pygmy hedgehog is a product of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was all throughout Europe, Asia, and Africa. There's about 20-pound hedgehogs living in Africa, the size of a basketball. And this one is a mixture of all the wild ones, and that's one that makes it different with it being a hybrid. She's actually so calm, I can't even tickle her and have her turn into a ball. But the Romans used this as a multi-use animal here. The hair on the back was used to make everything from cardstock to animal training, but the hedgehog itself was food. You may not want to be eating bugs, but eating something that eats bugs, you can get good energy from that. That's because every time we climb a tropic level, we lose 10% of our energy. And our little hedgehog here walks around at nighttime following their senses and eat bugs. You can survive on a diet of earthworms if you needed to. But what these animals are now in England, they're starting to vanish. This is what we call a sight indicator. It's an animal in the wild that serves as a report card to the world around us, and we're starting to lose them. Overuse of pesticides, habitat fragmentation, degradation, loss, they're not doing well. So that's why maybe we need to have a little library pet when we open back up to normal. We have twin sisters, Molly and Polly, and I was supposed to get one of my males back from our Learnable program. The Learnable program is when I have animals that are extra and they go live with a school or a library for a while. And one of my male hedgehogs I was supposed to pick back up this spring, but the virus happened. He's living with a teacher friend up in Illinois. The hedgehog's name is Don Prickles. The same teacher has a potbelly pig named Kevin Bacon. I'm not kidding. What you have to think is, as soon as we get Don back, we'll put Don, Molly, and Polly together, and we should have some new little babies for us. And we have that cute little abdomen there for us. But that nose is always sniffing, because this is an animal that wants to be asleep right now and awake and active at nighttime. So this is a nocturnal insectivore, a specific kind of carnivore, eating only those bugs. Now, we're going to get out the next one, another one that's a little bit more charismatic for you. Come on. I know. With this one, I want you all to meet Tracy. Say hi, Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Now, Tracy here is a very interesting North American ground-dwelling rodent. This is the black-tailed prairie dog. Now, they like to program with me, and I always give them massages, and when we program them, our prairie dogs always like to do their upside-down dog yoga poses. I really wish I was that flexible. Got a bad back. Now, the prairie dogs are found living together in a group in what is called a prairie dog town. In this prairie dog town, it's a massive network of tunnels, cavities, and caverns underneath the surface of the soil, where on top of the ground, they manipulate the vegetation. They mow the grass down like you people in town. You mow the grass every 7 to 10 days, not 3. Now, the first time I found a prairie dog, I was living in the desert badlands of North Dakota. I was on a hike, and I'd been hiking about 4 hours, and I'd only seen like 2 lizards. I came up out of a drainage on the flat part of the ground, and as far as I could see, I thought I walked into a golf course. There was short, tender green grass with holes and rodents all the way around. And what these animals are doing is they were keeping the grass short and tender, because when you're this big, there's a lot of things that are going to eat you. So if you keep the grass short and tender, you can see farther. And that tender green grass is going to attract other herbivores in the area. And when I hiked into it, the first thing I saw besides the prairie dog was full of life and biodiversity. There was prairie dogs, jackrabbits, antelope, deer, all the way up to 3,000-pound bison. All these animals were attracted to the area because of that short, tender green grass. And if all the herbivores are there, we're certainly going to see our carnivores. The foxes, coyotes, and wolves. All these animals are going to be feeding on the slow, the weak, and the infirm. But the prairie dogs have to be there first. And that's why they're called the keystone species. When you think of an archway, the center stone in the top is called a keystone. It holds the whole thing together. And that's what we're looking at with our little prairie dog right here. They manipulate the vegetation. They make habitat happen. And with that, everybody benefits from it, even humans. Although humans, we didn't think they were good, and we have now shot, trapped, and poisoned to remove prairie dogs to only 4% of their natural historic range. Prairie dogs naturally were found as far east as Arkansas, as far west as California, all the way up into Canada, down into Mexico. But they've now been removed to only 4% of their natural historic range, because when we tried to domesticate the American West and we took our livestock, we turned them loose, these animals will go running through a prairie dog town, and they fall in one of the holes and break their legs. And that's sad, because one prairie dog isn't going to be able to make it. They have to live in that town, that community. And what we're facing right now, we need to take a lesson from them. These prairie dog towns were massive, and they helped everything out. Largest one we had on record was 3 miles wide from east to west and 7 miles long from north to south. And that is a huge water collection basin. Now the west side, the Sierra Nevadas and the Rockies, is a very damp ecosystem. The prevailing winds come in off the Pacific and the water falls off the air molecule before it can come over. So the west side's damp, east side's dry, and that's where we have the prairie dogs. And these herbivores, you see how the eyes are definitely on the side of the head, that sense of whiskers, those smaller ears, because they're going to be in and out of the dirt so much. And these prairie dogs will spend all the time running below the surface to the top, and they actually take the cool, moist air from below the surface soil to the top, where they then exhale. That causes rain clouds to start forming. Sometimes our rainfall here in Tennessee started with a bunch of prairie dog breath in Oklahoma or Nebraska. That's why they're called the keystone species. They're an amazing animal for us. You can watch Molly. She likes to play with her water bowl and put her on her head like a pith helmet. She's real very funny. Hush, hush. Now, when we think about that, the less we can learn, we need to get together as our community and take care of ourselves. Now, the next animal is special because I have to wear a glove. If I'm wearing a glove, that means Bob can get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. Save your question for me. Doesn't really matter because you're not even here. I can't believe I just said that. I'm sure Miss Patty had a question. Good girl. I want you all to meet Elle. Now, Elle here is our Eurasian Eagle Owl. And with this animal here, we're looking at a very cool predator. Remember that niche, that job. Definitely 2 eyes on the front of the head. Now this is a very big bird. And a lot of people think I'm stronger than what I really am. Now she's just a teenager. She's always slouching. If you see it, her hip bones are all the way up into here. Don't eat my finger. But what we have is this is a very big bird. And this animal here only weighs 5.5 pounds. Birds are nothing but feathers. I'm not even touching skin yet. But what a 5-pound animal has here is look at those eyes. They're bigger than mine. And I weigh over 200 pounds now. Our Eurasian Eagle Owl has huge eyes. And if you had owl-sized eyeballs in your head, you would have dodgeballs for eyeballs. And if you had dodgeball-sized eyeballs in your head, you'd look funnier than what you do already today. But what she can do is these eyes, they are a little bit more orange-yellow than yellow of our great horned owl. The Eurasian Eagle Owl is found in England, east all the way through Europe, through Asia to the Pacific Ocean, up into Siberia, all the way down to the Middle East and India. 17 different subspecies of the Eurasian Eagle Owl. So a lot of you, if you're Harry Potter fans, a lot of the birds used in that movie were Eurasian Eagle Owls. That way. There's not an audience to eat, but they're in those little black boxes, okay? Now, what you have to think of is there's over 17 different subspecies of these. Now, what these animals were used in the movie, those are almost all were the Eurasian Eagle Owl, except for the Hedwig bird, but I have a spoiler there for you. The Hedwig bird was actually a male. Females are all white, and having that little bit of black, that was a male snowy owl. But with our eagle owl here, and you think of her senses, she has huge eyes. But try this experiment. Sit still, look up to the ceiling, down the floor, left and right. You have 6 muscles to move your eyes up, down, left, and right. When you look at Elle, her eyes will never move. There's no muscles to move those eyes. And if you had owl-sized eyeballs in your head and the muscles to move them, your head would be so big and heavy it couldn't stay on your neck and fall off your neck and be behind your shoulder. So the owl's eyes never move. Instead, do they have a flexible neck? Yeah. Can an owl spin their head all the way around? No, it'll pop off. You don't believe me? Try it on a chicken. We're going to make chicken and dumplings someplace. Now, what happens is mammals, we have 7 vertebrae in our neck. We have the same number of vertebrae in our neck as a giraffe and a blue whale. We all have 7 vertebrae in our neck, where a bird here has 14, and having much more range of motion because of that. Flexible muscles do not weigh anymore, and a flying animal, weight is the enemy. So great vision, but her best sense is her sense of hearing. These feathers here are just that, feathers. What you have to understand, her ears are those little crescent shapes you can see right there. Every other feather on her body is flat. It's used for mimicry, blending into the background. Where the feathers that make up her ears are actually three-dimensional. They look a lot like frost or a snowflake. And they can even be articulated. Because her ears are like a satellite dish. And an owl will sit very still in the darkness of night, listening. Her hearing is so good, she can hear a mouse breathe at over 100 yards away. And she just waits for that prey to make a mistake and leave cover. As soon as it does, she's going to fly on her full power all the way through the night sky. She has a 6-foot wingspan here. And these powerful wings are moving the wind here, but there is no noise. No noise comes from her feathers. She is a silent flyer. The owl is the ninja of the animal world. But the expression wise old owl isn't true at all. Owls are not terribly intelligent. They don't have to be. They're just very good at one thing, and that one thing is killing. And these are phenomenal predators. Owls and raptors in general can routinely kill prey more than twice their body size. Did you ever put back in circulation, I Really Want to Eat a Kid? Come on, goddamn. I found that at the Brentwood Library the other day. No, it was the Franklin one. Such a good book. Now what we have right here is these animals. Elle is an educational ambassador with me, but she also is trained to do what is called abatement. Abatement is when we use a bird of prey to deter things. Think of an orchard, a vineyard, or a landfill. Thank you. All right, so Elle here is used in what we call abatement. That's where we can deter other animals by just flying her around. And she could chase things away for us. Now, this animal right here is one that parents, I want you to take a learning lesson from. We fly Elle and she earns her food. We use positive reinforcement on my animals. On yours, use negative enforcement. You can tell your children no. I think parents should be allowed to take oxygen out of a house if you need to now. It's getting kind of bad in quarantine. I didn't like distance learning. But you have to understand, I can't do anything negative with something like this because these feet here can do up to 500 pounds of pressure per square inch. If she wants to, she can break every finger bone I have without even worried about it. But she has to earn her food, and we fly her from perch to perch on command. Excellent vision, but even better hearing to find her food. She has one ear hole high, one ear hole low. That's why if you watch them sometimes, owls do that weird little hip bob dance. They are fine-tuning to listen to a single spot. But think of that sense of smell. Does she have one? Nope. And with that, that's what makes our owls special because they love to eat skunks. Because if you can't smell them, a skunk's actually a very common black and white animal at nighttime that nobody else wants to eat. Now, what we have to understand with our owl here is she actually regurgitates undigested parts. And we had that happen just the other day during one of our Zooms. She opened her mouth and out came an owl pellet. And maybe we should try and mail some to Miss Patty, and then you could do a workshop Zoom with them and reassemble the entire skeleton of whatever we've been feeding. Yeah. All right, friends, who can remember Miss Patty's reading story this week? Because we specifically brought to you our little kangaroo. This is little Elon here. And our little kangaroo is a wonderful marsupial. And he came not from the pouch originally, but now he lives in a pouch with us. As a mammal, he is born alive, live birth. So when he was born alive about 9 months ago, he didn't look anything like this. He looked much like a gummy bear. His eyes, his ears, his limbs, his tail, none of this was even formed yet. And this little guy had to climb from where he's born to get into his mother's pouch. Now, with these guys here is he was born alive, and he was about this big, and he had no hair on his body. That's the second characteristic of a mammal. You can see Mr. Bob is losing his, but Elon here has a wonderful fur coat. But that had to grow and mature while he was inside the pouch, drinking what from his mama? Milk. Mammals feed their babies milk. And one of the cool things on little boys like this is he drinks a bottle from me now. And that's what's special about our little marsupial, the ones with a pouch. But not all marsupials have pouch. Short-tailed possum from South America is the only marsupial that does not have a pouch. Mothers still give birth to very underdeveloped young, but she has a ring of teats, and the babies just go on there and they continue to grow, and then she has to like duck walk. It's annoying. We've had raised some of those before. Now, we are looking at a macropod. Macro means big. Look at his foot. This is just a little 5.5 pound baby. And that foot's already longer than my hand. There's one toe here on the outside. Most people don't ever get to see. This big toe here is the one that most people see. And then there's 3 and 4 digits right there. And the 3rd and 4th digit is one that is going to be his favorite one to help itch around himself. Or for this little guy, he is still sucking his thumb, basically, or his toes. Now, the kangaroos are found living in a large group called a mob. And in that mob, the big males will protect him. And now, if we do not neuter Toby here, he will get to be, wait, you're Elon, wrong one. If we do not neuter him, he will stand 6'1" to 6'5", 110 to 210 pounds, and would have the ability to beat the ever-loving snot out of me. This guy here is a 5-pound little baby. But look at those claws already on that front hand. He will claw or box you if you're a predator and you don't back off. Now, if that still doesn't chase you away, this tail right here, right now, this is just nothing but bone, ligaments, and a little bit of muscle. But his tail is how strong he can be, and he can lean all the way back and kick you flat-footed. Now, he can kick a 200-pound like me. I'd fly over my table and be on that wall. But if he needs to, they can change the angle of this ankle. And with this little toenail here, language for your writing assignment. A kangaroo can disembowel you. They slice open your stomach and your intestines spill out. They can eviscerate you, slicing the femoral artery on your leg, and then you bleed out. But you're looking at an animal with 5 digits on the front feet, 4 digits on the back. You're looking at a 6-foot-tall bunny. Even though they are marsupial, they're closely related and act like rabbits. Now, our kangaroos are retired on our farm. We neuter ours to keep them smaller, and it makes them easier to handle and calmer. And they'll be about that tall, about 65 pounds when they're full grown. But our kangaroo is not a native marsupial. The only marsupial we have here in North America is the possum. And ladies, if you think about reincarnation, do not think or look past being a possum. Because when a possum gives birth, they give birth to 30 babies at one time. Labor is so intensive, you sleep during the entire process. Good selling point. You give birth to 30, on average 8 to 10 make it inside your pouch. The rest are going to die in the first few minutes. You don't know this because you're still asleep. You actually don't even know your mother till months later when they climb out. You don't got to deal with those pesky newborns. But with our little kangaroo here, he lives with us in our house, inside with me and my family. My 5-year-old daughter is actually the one that enjoys taking care of him the most. Easiest way to get her to take an afternoon nap. We give him a baba, and they both take a little nap for us. So friends, I'm sorry we couldn't see you in person this year, but we're doing everything we can on the virtual program. Parents, if you're tuning in, make sure you continue to support your public library in these trying times. They're still getting you information as best as they can. Make sure you support the library and the friends of the public library. They made it possible for someone like me to come. If you want to follow us online, you can follow us at animalogy.org, or if you pull it up on Facebook. For the quirky adults in the room that are paying attention to me today, on 7/20/20 at 8:30 at night, the Saline County, Arkansas Public Library is doing a Bob After Dark program. You put the kids to bed, grab yourself what you need, and we all have a zoo webinar, and we talk about all the weird things that I've seen over the years in our wildlife programming with the public. So I want to thank you all for joining in. Make sure you keep tuned in to Miss Patty and everything that they're doing here at the library. Have a good, safe year, and I'll see you when I see you next in person. Thank you much. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.